Hey guys, it's Megan. I'm back for another video this week. Remember to hit that subscribe button. This is vlog number 129. I'll be doing a review on the Yellow Wallpaper. The Yellow Wallpaper was published in 1892 and it was written by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So the Yellow Wallpaper starts off by the narrator, a woman who is not named, details her experiences of living into a new house, a rented secluded summer house with her husband John. Now the reason why they moved into a new house is to help Jane, or we'll call her Jane Doe, relax. This is due to Jane Doe being diagnosed with temporary nervous depression by her husband John, who is a physician. So with Jane being diagnosed, her husband orders her to get rest basically 24/7. Jane pretty much obeys everything that her husband tells her to do. For example, when they first move into their new house, Jane wants to sleep in a downstairs room that's pretty and it has a lot of windows on the ground floor of the house, but John insists on staying on the big room on the top floor, even though Jane has repeatedly tells him that it makes her uncomfortable because there's this yellow wallpaper in there that makes her like queasy. So now Jane writes her thoughts and experiences down, but does it in secret because John tells her it gets in the way of her treatment of being depressed. So as Jane sits in the room with the yellow wallpaper, she starts to become obsessed with it and begins having delusions that there is a woman trapped behind the wall, behind the wretched wallpaper. Because she's not allowed to do anything, Jane starts to trace the wallpaper and starts to peel it off, and she becomes absolutely obsessed with it. She constantly describes herself creeping around the room as she peels the wallpaper. Because her husband John is away so much because of his job, he does not realize his wife has become practically insane. So at the end of the story, Jane has completely torn off the wallpaper, believing herself to free the woman trapped in the wall, and creeps all around the room. John then walks in and supposedly faints, but Jane is described as not caring at all and continuously creeps all over his body as he's fainted on the floor. So the context of the Yellow Wallpaper can be seen as a feminist nature. Because it was written in 1892 by a woman, it is seen by experts as a way to break down barriers, because the main character in the book, we'll call her Jane Doe, as I said before, tends to choose madness rather than conforming to what her husband tells her to do. So it can be seen as iconic or revolutionary for that age, and it is seen iconic in the eyes of feminists because of at that point of time and what the main character ended up doing rather than conforming to her. So the word that I have chosen to describe the book is the word creeping. And the reason that I chose this is because the main character constantly starts to use the word at the end of the book. And I found that it was very fitting because since it is not cited in the beginning of the book, it just shows her change from the beginning to the end, saying how her boredom and her seclusion made her even more crazy. And I just felt it was very fitting because you could just see the difference between the beginning and the end, how she went from being secluded and her husband telling her that she can't do all this stuff to her creeping around the room, peeling off the wallpaper. Her husband faints and she ends up not really caring and creeps all over his body. So I just felt that it was very fitting and with the context of the book. The Yellow Wallpaper is also seen as significant because it tackles the issue of feminism. So to back this up, I have the expert Dr. S. Wire Mitchell. She describes the story as a rescue to alleviate her depression after the birth of her daughter. Also in the same article, I have it stated that early readings by Elaine Hedges, Susan Gilbert, and Susan Guber, that they take up the story as a universal text of a woman's struggle against the patriarchal structures that constrict them, casting the narrator as a heroine who chooses to become mad rather than to assume her proper place in the patriarchal order. So the narrator is forbidden to write. The narrator's main task becomes one of interpretation, of trying to read the wallpaper, and it is precisely this process of interpretation that becomes both maddening and ultimately liberating. If the narrator, as the universal feminist subject, can free herself through writing interpretation, so too can U.S. academic feminists engaged in similar tasks. The next expert source that I have is by Anitar Sazkaler. from Edge University, and he says that the aim of the paper is to comment on Yellow Wallpaper as a trauma narrative. And he says it is a multi-layered story that narrates a traumatized middle-class woman's acting out the symptoms of trauma caused by the social imposition of reductive models of femininity on her. He also says that she is living like a slave, robbed of her identity and self-esteem, which proves that a woman's experiences can be as traumatizing as those of a slave. This also goes hand in hand with Mitchell's source as they talk about that era's femininity and how women really didn't have a mind of their own. They were controlled by their men. That will conclude my review on the Yellow Wallpaper. Make sure to tune in next week when I'll be doing a review on everyday use. Thank you. Remember to hit that like button.